Hi, everyone. This is Jason Burek of Wall Street from Main Street. Welcome back to another Wall Street from Main Street podcast interview. Today's special guest is a first-time guest. He's a seasoned serial entrepreneur with over 20 years experience in the pharmaceutical business-to-business technology industry, also retail, mail order, and pharmacy industry, pharmaceutical branding, and clinical trials. So he has extensive experience in those different types of industries, and he's the founder and CEO of Pure Global Cannabis. So we're going to learn more about the cannabis and cannabis products industry today. Malay, Panchal, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Now, Malay, let's give the listeners like a 30,000-foot view of the marijuana and cannabis industry right now, because obviously it's a very exciting industry. I think there's a lot of growth in the future, but there's also a lot of regulation. Governments are very heavily involved. So Canada, correct me if I'm wrong about this, Canada is legalizing marijuana in the near future. Do you think that Canadian companies have some type of clear advantage over American ones?
Absolutely, Jason. So Canada is indeed legalizing marijuana for adult legal use come this October 17th, meaning federal approval and the first G7 country that will have done this. Now, what's more is because of the federal approval and the federal framework, what this allows is the ability for Canada to export cannabis for those countries that are looking for medical cannabis products, and there's a growing number, upwards of 30 already. And although the recreational or adult legal use that's being legalized come this October impacts only the Canadian market, still what this does is gives Canadian licensed producers and distributors that much more of a market and profitability and size that they can go out to the export markets and the international markets, and that's really where our company is focused. Canada is actually a relatively small market, but when you look at the global market, and especially the demand and growing demand, it's just astronomical right now, especially for medical cannabis products. And that's one thing your listeners have to be aware of, that although legalization is happening in Canada, the export potential is only on the medical grade products, which we are focused on developing.
So how, for our listeners who are not familiar, then how large is that medical cannabis market maybe compared to the regular marijuana market? And what types of growth potential are we looking at in the future? What are some of the analyst estimates for future growth?
Well, the recreational or adult use market relative to just the medical market in Canada is somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 10-fold. Having said that, when we look at the global medical market, which is ever growing, the numbers are anywhere from 50 to 200 billion in terms of market size, and we're really on the cusp of just the beginnings of tapping into that vast opportunity when it comes to cannabis being distributed around the world, pharmaceutical grade, that is, through GMP licensed facilities, and with the United States, for example, with the regulations that are not quite up to par yet with the rest of the world, Canada and parts of Europe and South America, Australia, and so forth. This represents a tremendous opportunity going forward, and it's just, again, the tip of the iceberg, and we're on the wave, the beginning of a vast wave that's to grow and to come for years to come.
Yeah, I've interviewed other marijuana experts from my channel. I interviewed someone who moved to Colorado and has worked at different jobs in the industry. I've interviewed marijuana CEOs and Marijuana Business Daily, someone from there as well. And it seems that there's an enormous opportunity in the United States, but it's kind of bifurcated. So if you're at the state level, you can do business in Colorado or California, but there's huge problems trying to do things at the federal level. First of all, you have to deal with Jeff Sessions, who absolutely hates marijuana. I think he's Mr. Reefer Madness. But the other thing is you have to deal with the banks. So if you're a Canadian company, it seems you don't have that bank issue that the American ones do. So if you're, I think the Canadian marijuana companies are going to have an advantage potentially going into those large marijuana markets like California in the near future.
This is absolutely correct, Jason. Any U.S. entity currently is federally breaking the law and at risk of really being shut down. And in fact, Canadians that have investments potentially or operations in the U.S. in the cannabis sector are having issues with border crossing, and some have even faced lifetime bans. So the current regime there is very strict on cannabis in their views for whatever reasons, and we can get into that perhaps on another session. But indeed, Canadian companies have a tremendous opportunity with federal backing, international pharmaceutical types of framework. Just like pharmaceuticals are distributed around the world, cannabis, once it's produced in that sort of grade, which is our focus, you now can distribute it and present it to the medical communities in those markets that have regulations for medical cannabis.
That's interesting. So you think for now, a lot of Canadian marijuana companies at different parts of the value chain, whether they're growers or making medical cannabis products like yourself, you think that they're going to stay away from a lot of the U.S. markets like California until the regulatory environment changes?
I can't say for all, but for us being listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, one of the requirements is that we cannot do any business in the U.S. Because of the federal laws. There's fear of principals having issues. Other companies are a little bit more bold, if you will, and taking their chances. I've talked to a recent founder of one that had operations in the U.S., and he's fearful of traveling now for fear of being lifetime banned and what have you. So for this reason, Canada represents a bastion of opportunity for investors, where these for companies like ours are not restricted in any way, and we can invest in R&D and developing intellectual property and in production. Strains and as well as delivery systems. You got to understand, cannabis is used for a variety of different diseases, and these diseases are sort of manipulated or attacked in different ways. You may want to ingest it and have it absorb in your upper GI or your lower GI. Inhalation is best for certain ailments. Transdermal. All these opportunities exist for us to develop on a medical level, which can then be prescribed by physicians around the world.
So you just touched a little bit on my next question. I was going to ask, what type of ailments and medical problems do you find that people are using a lot of cannabis products for nowadays?
Well, there's about 80 clinical diseases that are known to benefit from cannabis use, and there's hundreds potentially of ailments that can benefit from cannabis from anecdotal evidence. On the most part, cannabis is used for chronic pain, for anxiety. A lot of people use it for sleep, mood elevation. But there's a growing number of diseases that really benefit from cannabis in ways that no other product does, especially certain types of epilepsy, certain types of neurological disorders. Certain migraine headaches seem to only work best with proper cannabis treatment. And so these are really the areas we want to focus in, finding those strains, those combinations of CBD and THC, the key components of cannabis, that deliver that wanted effect, and creating that product on a consistent, standardized basis, which just hasn't happened yet in the industry. And that lends to a tremendous opportunity in creating products that consumers are going to want to purchase, and physicians are going to want to prescribe.
Yeah, I've seen documentaries where CBD oil has even been used to potentially like reverse some early stages, I think, of skin cancer. And I have a friend, she's been on all kinds of medications for most of her adult life, and she has seizures, and she's gotten the seizures in check because she uses cannabis. She's in the United States, so you know, she's figured out a way to get medical marijuana, and it's really helped her life. But obviously, unfortunately, you know, Jeff Sessions and some of the other people at the federal level are making it difficult.
Well, Jason, it's interesting that cannabis was used by humans for thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands of years. We have specific receptors in the body that are there particularly for cannabinoids through our endocannabinoid system. And for an entire system like that to develop means it has to have been around our sort of physiology for tens of thousands of years. And only over the last 70 to 100 years has it been kept from from the population, and it's for reasons that we can get into, but really to protect the pockets lines of a few. But now it's being rediscovered as an ancient medicine, and we're discovering that it can't be treated like a pharmaceutical, which are often bullet solutions. There's an entourage effect that's happening with all the different compounds that are in a cannabis product, and we're learning more and more that there's terpenes that are involved, and THCAs and THCVs and CBDNs and so forth. And so we're very excited on all the mysteries that we're going to get to unravel, and give consumers products that they can depend upon for whatever use they choose for cannabis.
Which industries do you think were maybe blocking cannabis, turning it illegal then? Was it the beer industry, marijuana, was it the tobacco industry? Was it the Tylenol, the pain reliever industry? Was it big pharma? Was it a combination of these different industries that basically put the kibosh decades ago in the United States on marijuana?
Well, Jason, if you really look at the history of when a prohibition for marijuana ensued, especially in the United States, it came around the time of when alcohol prohibition ended. And was it a coincidence that the Drug Enforcement Agency at the time that was enforcing alcohol prohibition, was soon going to be out of a job, and there's evidence that there was a collusion, if you will, with the alcohol prohibition now looking for something else to prohibit. Also, the cotton industry was quite threatened by hemp, apparently, due to it being a much better fiber to retain color and lasted much longer after washing and so forth. And also, yes, the pharmaceutical industry was ensuing at the time in the 1930s and late 20s there, and people were going away from natural medicine, and the pharmaceutical industry had the answer. So stop this, and cannabis was the number 1 and 2 most prescribed medicine up until those times. So there is a very interesting history behind who was behind setting up this marijuana act, Reefer Madness that started and ensued, and then of course the DEA's huge budget, and of course they are still the main opponent against legalization of cannabis because it would affect their budget tremendously. So it's very controversial why cannabis has been kept. In fact, you can find evidence that as early as the 1970s, the U.S. government had ideas of why the benefits of cannabis, and even actually filed a patent on THC's medical benefits. And you can also actually find on the U.S. national government website, if you dig a little bit, that cannabis studies on mice are showing anti-tumor properties. So yet it's Schedule 1 in the U.S. Currently, where it's said that it has no medicinal value, but controversially they yet have this other evidence. And so times are coming, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, with almost over 30 states in the District of Columbia having some sort of cannabis laws, and over 8 states with recreational laws. It's soon to follow in the U.S., and indeed Canadian companies have an opportunity to set up very sophisticated operations with full supply chain sophistication, and when the time comes, we'll be ready to enter the U.S. markets and introduce our brands or just technology and know-how into the U.S. markets.
Yeah, I'm in favor of full legalization for everything related to marijuana and cannabis here in the United States. I remember seeing, these military posters. I can't remember if it was World War I or World War II, where the U.S. military was encouraging farmers to grow hemp for the war effort. So it was, endorsed at some point, and then the things just changed probably because of a big business in another industry, like you said. So you guys are focusing on cannabis oil concentrates. For our listeners who are not familiar with those, what are those exactly?
So cannabis generally is consumed in various formats, whether it's dried flower, which is broken down or ground for combustion, or vaporization for inhalation, and that's a very prevalent method of utilizing it, and it still exists. But the other great bastion of opportunity is to take the extract of the flower. So you put it through a process where you extract the resin and you purify it and distill, and you produce what is the cannabis oil. This oil can then be either ingested through soft gel capsules, or you can put it through a variety of transformative processes to create the delivery systems of the future, including transdermal patches, sublingual dosage forms. You could see effervescent tablets one day, and so forth. And that's really where our company is looking forward to. When you walk into a Walgreens, your prominent brands, they'll have an entire section, not just one or two products, and that's where we believe the opportunity lies, is capturing retail property or retail real estate, and giving consumers the broad variety of product that they're going to be looking for in a trusted brand that they know is not going to be tainted or not going to, and it's going to have the quality that they're seeking.
How difficult is it to get a licensed government company approved marijuana in Canada for you guys?
Well, Jason, we put our application, just to give you a sense, in late 2014, and we were not able to receive our license until late 2018. And so it's quite a long, an arduous process. We had to submit almost 5,000 pages of documentation, a lot of hoops to jump through, and so the bar is really high. And although there's thousands of applicants in the pipeline, there's only a handful of companies that are going to be chosen to ultimately become cultivators, processors, and fewer that will actually choose to deploy an entire range of products that are going to be branded on an international scale. And that's where we feel we're going to be able to set ourselves apart and be one of the leaders within the next 12 to 24 months.
So before I ask you more specific questions about your company, let me just put it out there for my listeners that there's a free in-depth research report available at futuremoneytrends.com/pure. That's futuremoneytrends.com/pure. So what's your competitive advantage then? Because there's a lot of competition in your industry. There's 32 licensed medical grade businesses in Canada with a median market cap around 800 million. Your company, Pure Global Cannabis, started trading not too long ago, earlier this month on July 11th, and has a market cap of 60 million. So what's your competitive advantage that's going to allow your company to leapfrog the others?
Great question, Jason. So I'm a pharmacist by trade, and one of the advantages I felt I brought to the sector is really understanding the healthcare approach and the medicinal approach that you really need to take to delivering this product to consumers. But having said that, I knew that I was not going to be the one that was going to be growing it, and so the first thing I did was set out to find the top grower I could, and I think we have found the most talented commercial horticulturists, a few of them that are really around in our VP production. He brings talent from patents and academic awards, having worked in Asia, Europe, as well as in Canada in developing large-scale commercial facilities, experience with thousands of species of plants academically, and using vertical farming, hydroponic technology. So we set out to really become experts in growing, and we studied all the various hydroponic techniques out there, and we're ultimately able to discover that there did not exist a specialized hydroponic methodology for cannabis, and we ultimately have recently filed a patent for what we call our multiponic system, which incorporates several hydroponic methodologies and enables cannabis to be grown in sort of an ideal environment where it can thrive and be grown in a way that can benefit from vertical farming technologies. And so that's going to be one of our key competitive advantages. The other advantage we also have is we're at ground level for investors. We're pre-revenue still. We have a pipeline of announcements coming down the road of our expansion plans, team members that we're adding, a global growth that we're looking at, and so investors have an opportunity to join the ride before we join the ranks of the mid levels that you talked about, 800 million, and we really really believe we're going to be a top 10 player into the top echelon with the business model that we have in mind. And that's the third competitive advantage I think that we have is being sort of the next wave. We get to see all the mistakes that our predecessors have made, and we get to tweak our business model into what I call Cannabis 3.0. And again, that's those commercialized products that are going to be quality products that consumers are ultimately going to be looking to on retail shelves very soon, on the medical pharmacy shelves, and as well as what we call the wellness or nutraceutical area, and also health and beauty products that we also look to have an entire line of. And so hopefully with the trifecta, we will be able to develop a sustainable business that differentiates us over the long term.
So on your website, it says that your marijuana is going to be higher yield than other marijuana, and it's going to have no pesticides or herbicides. For our listeners out there who don't know the difference between regular marijuana and organic marijuana, is that basically the only difference with no pesticides or herbicides, or are there other differences?
The way that we can alleviate the use of pesticides and herbicides to the extent where others have to use them to save their crop is you have to design the facility in a very specific manner, and the environment has to be very precisely controlled. And this requires a considerable amount of investment in the appropriate instruments, sensors, and equipment that can manage these what we call controlled growth environments. And this will lend us to, with the standard operating procedures of a pharmaceutical scale operation, this will lend to us being able to produce pesticide-free and what we think is going to be even better than organic, benefiting from the powers of vertical farming.
Are you guys projecting better margins with the multi-ponic growing process? Is it a faster and cheaper process over the long term compared to some of the other growing techniques?
Absolutely. When you're talking about a growth facility that is a one single layer of plants, and they're putting all their energy into growing these large plants where the stalk and leaves and the roots take up energy and are ultimately thrown out, versus if you can visualize a scenario where you have 3 or 4 layers of much smaller plants, and this is the modern horticulture commercial methodology. If you go to modern apple orchards, for example, Jason, you'll notice that they're not giant apple trees anymore. They're actually sticks that come out of the ground, and you have a bunch of apples growing off of them. And we're bringing the same concept to the cannabis sector, where we will just grow the plants to a smaller height. Let's not waste energy into stalks and roots and what have you that are going to be thrown away. Focus just on the roots and the flower, and this will enable us to leverage LED types of technologies, automation, and high efficiency methods that can all lend to economies of scale. So now you're in the same square footage, you are growing triple or quadruple the number of flower versus a single layer, and this will result in quite a significant cost reduction, and ultimately this will lend to higher margins for our shareholders.
That's very interesting. So if I could summarize that, what you just said, you're using a lot more technology involved in your marijuana growing process compared to a lot of your other competitors then?
Absolutely. We are bringing cutting-edge horticulture, agri-tech into the cannabis sector like none that's been really seen or done yet at a scale that is really not done in the cannabis sector yet. And we're bringing best practices that have worked in other agricultural crops and products, proven methodologies, and tweak them for cannabis. And yes, indeed, this will be state of the art and something we're going to be very proud of.
So it seems that you're focusing on the medical marijuana products part. Is that a lot higher margin than just regular growing marijuana and selling it, or retail selling marijuana and marijuana brownies and things like that? Are the margins way better?
You hit the nail on the head, Jason. You have to remember that the regular adult use products for licensed producers, though it's a larger market in Canada, the margins are actually going to be much smaller because they're being sold through regulated retail stores where we're forced to sell to them at a wholesale level, where they often will dictate the price. However, when you look at the medical products, these are finished products that enable you to add margin. Also, you're able to sell these on a retail price level and export them at a much higher price point and to a much larger demand. So when you put all those together, there's a much greater opportunity outside of the Canadian borders than versus just within.
So the goal then is to be focusing on more value added rather than a commodity business that's heavily regulated and there's too much competition and margins. You're going to focus more on. Okay, so it seems, Malay, that you're focusing more on the value added part. You probably have a lot more intellectual property than the average marijuana grower or the average marijuana retail store, because that seems like a very heavily regulated, low margin, highly competitive business, and it seems you're trying to get maybe more intellectual property and trying to protect your margins that way?
You're absolutely correct, Jason. There's a bastion of opportunity for intellectual property in the cannabis sector. So we have looked at capturing that, firstly on the production side, where we discovered an opportunity in our multiponic system that I've described earlier. But there also exists tremendous opportunity to capture intellectual property in unique strains. You're going to see that very soon. More and more companies striving to really trademark their unique strains and the properties around them. And then you're going to see those novel products, those unique delivery systems that are going to represent a unique opportunity to target specific ailments and diseases, and those will often be potentially, big profit products. I don't want to say $1 billion, but if you can really find a product that really it does the job for certain ailments, it can really pay huge dividends for a company, obviously. So there exists tremendous opportunity to capture intellectual property on several fronts, and this is an area we want to really capitalize.
So the market is giving you guys some credit for this already. You have a $60 million market cap. How much cash do you have right now, and what are the steps in the near term to move the company forward, new deals, start to generate revenue, and eventually in a couple years or something, or you can give me the timeline, make a profit?
Sure, Jason. I have to first correct you. I think our current market cap is somewhere below 50, which even represents a greater sort of opportunity, I think, for investors right now. We're basically on the ground floor. Our ship has just entered the public markets and has sailed, and we've yet to really cast our sails and start catching wind. But indeed, sorry, what was the rest of your question there, Jason?
Oh, just the near term, any deals that are maybe gonna start generating you guys some revenue in the near future?
Right.
And what are the goals towards move to profitability, and how long do you think it's going to take then?
And our cash position. So we're currently sitting around just around $8 million cash, and we've actually just started lining up several other potential rounds, because we do have plans for expansion into global markets, and very soon we'll be making certain announcements. In terms of cash flow, we are looking to initiate revenues as early as Q4 of this year. The next step for us is acquire our Phase 1 sales license. Today we just made an announcement that we have adequate product now in stock to qualify for a sales license, which will enable us to start registering medical patients and dispensing to them through our online e-commerce store, and generating retail level margins. Ensuing that, profitability, we are a lean operation, and although it's a bit of a land grab right now where you want to capture market share and invest wisely, if you will, for maximum share value growth, we do aim to be a cash flow positive within 12 months and profitable soon after.
Do you anticipate having to maybe go through the FDA if you sell products here into the U.S., or are you not focusing on that for any time in the near future then?
Actually, Jason, there's a tremendous opportunity for us to develop cannabinoid products that have a natural product identifications, and as well as what's like the NDC under FDA. We believe that cannabis will be rescheduled, probably Schedule 2, 3, depending on if you're talking about THC or CBD component, and then will there create an opportunity, just like recently Epidiolex was approved by the FDA, which is a cannabis-based product for epilepsy, a CBD-based product, and this has really paved the way for future cannabis products to be approved, and we certainly hope to be following a path. And interestingly, it's not hundreds of millions of dollars like it would be for a traditional pharmaceutical product, knowing very well, coming from that industry myself, because cannabis is a natural product, it represents tremendous opportunity in saving cost, so consumers can get access to it sooner, and the FDA can be more rest assured that it's not going to pose harm for the public at large. So we're definitely very excited about all those opportunities down the road for us.
You guys have a very interesting story in a very exciting growth market. I wish you guys the best of luck. For our listeners out there, again, there's a free in-depth research report at futuremoneytrends.com/pure. That's futuremoneytrends.com/pure. And was there anything I missed, Malay, that you wanted to get in? Any questions I didn't ask? Any points you wanted to make before we wrap this interview up?
No, just that we're a company that's driven by delivering quality, trusted medicine in the cannabis sector to consumers that are going to grow to depend upon it and are depending upon it. And unlike many companies out there that are somewhat of the fly-by-night, if you will, that are looking to just quote-unquote capitalize on the opportunity, I truly am driven by making a difference in the lives that we're ultimately going to serve. And whatever else follows, is sort of the side effect. And ultimately, with the right acumen that we're looking to place, we believe we have a tremendous opportunity, and shareholders can rely upon a company that is not going to be taking chances. We believe slow and steady is going to win the race, and prudent decision making will determine the ultimate success stories, which we hope to be part of soon.
And if people want to research the industry more and your company more, they can also go to your company website, which is
pureglobals.com. Has all the information about our company, and we have an investor page which will be coming up very soon. So if you go recently, it may not be there, but do come back very soon. And also the link that you're going to mention now.
That's futuremoneytrends.com/pure. And I want to thank you again for your time today, Malay. And I wish you guys the best of luck. I think you're onto something. It's all about, with a small company, even if the business plan is great, it's all about execution and doing things right. So hopefully you guys will execute, and we'll have to have you back on in the near future for an update.
Thank you very much for having me, Jason.
Please like this video, share it with friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to the Wall Street for Main Street YouTube channel if you have not already done so. Thanks for helping Wall Street for Main Street pass the 20,000 YouTube channel subscriber milestone despite YouTube censorship. Hopefully, we'll be able to get to 30,000 or even 40,000 YouTube channel subscribers quickly if YouTube doesn't shut down this channel. If YouTube does shut down this channel, remember to also sign up for the Wall Street for Main Street email list that's on the wallstreetformainstreet.com website, and will tell you where the videos are going to be uploaded instead of YouTube. Also, if you really like the content and you decide that you want to give a one-time donation, you can go to the wallstreetformainstreet.com website where there's different options for you to do so. Or you can become a Patreon contributor. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to providing my loyal listeners with some of the best information, analysis, and financial education available out there, free or paid, as I work to grow the podcast and also get my educational technology company funded.